Often, the experience of feeling disconnected from oneself or the world around us emerges as a silent invader, a state that defies comprehension and generates a profound sense of isolation. It's not a delusion or a hallucination in the traditional sense, but rather a subtle and disturbing distortion of our perception. It's the sensation of observing one's own life from the outside, as if watching a movie, or of perceiving the environment as artificial, unreal, and devoid of its intrinsic familiarity. This disconnection, known as depersonalization and derealization, is a phenomenon that affects a surprising number of people, though it often remains shrouded in mystery and stigma, inaccessible to common language and easy understanding. The true nature of these states, their origins, and, crucially, the path to recovery, are the questions that drive the need for this deep dive. The problem lies in the granularity of our own existence. In a world that demands constant presence and engagement, the experience of feeling absent, of being in a state of neutral and detached observation, can be devastating. It undermines the foundation of our identity, our connection with our feelings, thoughts, and body, and shakes our trust in our own reality. For the individual experiencing it, depersonalization and derealization can be terrifying, leading to a spiral of anxiety, fear, and despair, often without knowing who to turn to or how to articulate what is happening. The lack of a precise and accessible vocabulary to describe these experiences contributes to the cycle of misunderstanding, both for those experiencing them and for those trying to help. This itinerary aims to demystify these states, offering an honest and profound look at what it truly means to experience them. Our unique feature lies in going beyond mere definition, delving into the nuances of subjective experience, exploring the underlying reasons that lead to this disconnection, and most importantly, charting a realistic and hopeful path toward overcoming it. It's not about offering a magic cure or a simplistic solution, but rather about building a bridge of understanding, connecting the isolation of individual experience with grounded and practical knowledge. The journey we propose here is one that allows us to recognize depersonalization and derealization not as a flaw or a sign of madness, but as a complex response of our system to certain challenges, a response that can be understood and, through this understanding, transformed. We will address the layers of meaning, the diverse manifestations, and the paths that lead back to a sense of being fully present and connected. The intrusion of these dissociative states often manifests itself through altered bodily sensations, an aspect that deserves particular attention and distinction from purely cognitive mechanisms. Consider the experience of feeling your body as foreign, as if it were an empty vessel or a phantom limb of your own existence. Touch, which would normally anchor physical reality, may seem distant, as if the skin were an impenetrable barrier between the self and the external world. This tactile desensitization, or conversely, a hypersensitivity that makes physical contact uncomfortable, is one of the cornerstones of depersonalization. For example, the texture of a favorite garment may suddenly seem alien, or the warmth of a friendly hand may not be felt with the same intensity or emotional significance as before. This sensory disconnection is not a loss of neurological function, but rather a reconfiguration of how information is processed and integrated by consciousness. Furthermore, the quality of emotions and the ability to connect with them undergo a peculiar metamorphosis. Instead of feeling, the individual may describe a sensation of looking at their own emotions without actually experiencing them. An event that would previously provoke intense joy or profound sadness may be met with clinical indifference, an intellectual observation that they should be feeling something. Imagine the following situation. A dear friend shares wonderful news about a personal success, and you intellectually recognize the magnitude of the achievement and the joy it should evoke. But internally, there is an emotional void, an absence of genuine affective resonance. This emotional anhedonia, this inability to feel fully, operates like a veil that obscures the depth of human interactions and the very vitality of life experience. time can also become distorted in ways that heighten the feeling of unreality. Periods may seem frozen, or conversely slip away in a blur, with no clear marking of significant moments. This temporal fragmentation affects the construction of a personal narrative, making it difficult to form a cohesive timeline and assign meaning to past experiences. Consider the individual who reports having lost hours or days with no distinct memories or a sense of continuity between the present moment and what preceded it. This gap in temporal perception contributes significantly to derealization, where the normal flow of daily life seems broken, like loose scenes in a film without the logical continuity that unites them. In contrast to the experience of depersonalization, where the focus is on dissociation from the self, derealization focuses on altered perception of the environment. The outside world may take on a peculiarly vivid or, paradoxically, faded appearance, as if cast in an unreal light or filtered through a blackout. A familiar park, with its usual trees and colors, may suddenly seem like a theater set, artificial and lifeless. The people around, though recognizable, may seem distant, like figures in a dream, devoid of the familiarity and depth they normally possess. This shift in environmental perception is a hallmark, an indication that the very structure of perceived reality is being questioned, even if the person is fully aware that this perception does not reflect objective reality. Finally, it's crucial to understand that these dissociative experiences are not indicators of a moral failing or weakness of character. Rather, they often arise as a coping mechanism, an adaptive response of the brain to intense or prolonged stresses, trauma, overwhelming anxiety, or certain medical conditions. Understanding the origin of these states as a form of psychological self-protection, albeit disturbing, is a fundamental step toward stripping them of their stigma and paving the way for healing. This perspective shifts the narrative from being broken to responding in a way that has become dysfunctional, opening up a range of therapeutic possibilities. As we weave together the various facets of this peculiar experience, a clearer picture begins to emerge, outlining the complexity and depth of what it means to inhabit depersonalization and derealization. These are not mere fleeting shifts in perception, but rather significant reconfigurations in how consciousness relates to itself and the fabric of reality that surrounds us. Throughout this exploration, we realize how the absence of a fluid and continuous connection can affect everything from the most intimate perception of one's own being to the most external interpretation of the environment. The way the body presents itself to us, the reverberation of emotions in our inner life, and the very cadence of time that sustains us, all of this begins to be viewed through a different lens, altering the familiarity of everyday life. Reflecting on this journey thus far, it becomes clear that understanding these states requires a perspective that transcends simplistic explanations. The complexity lies in the intricate interplay between mind, body, and environment, and how an imbalance in this system can trigger such reactions. What could previously be interpreted as a sign of fragility now reveals itself in a different light, that of a response, often involuntary, to pressures that overwhelm the mechanisms of emotional regulation and anchoring in reality. This new perspective invites us to consider the resilience inherent in human beings, even when manifested in ways that may seem contradictory. As we move forward, the convergence of these observations points to a more nuanced understanding. We are approaching the point where the implications of these findings begin to crystallize, suggesting not only the nature of the problem, but also the basis for a reorientation. The image that emerges is that of a detailed map, where each symptom, each peculiar sensation, is a reference point that guides us toward a more complete understanding. It is like adjusting the focus of a camera, moving from an initial blur to the sharp clarity of a previously hidden landscape. This progression in understanding is crucial for us to glimpse the paths that lead back to a state of well-being and belonging.